get this started, and we'll let anybody else that's going to join as we go along here. We appreciate you guys taking some time out of your morning to join us for the first of our small group series that we're doing over the next couple of months here. This first one with the topic being on the new normal of business continuity. I'm Dan Wilkie. I think I know most of everyone on the call here today. I'm the local Omaha-based account rep for Evolving Solutions. And joining me today is our also Omaha-based enterprise architect, Phil Fisichella. Some of you may be familiar with Phil. For those who aren't, Phil brings a wealth of experience in the technology field, both from his time traveling globally with vendors and also as his time as a client being faced with the same challenges and hurdles that you are faced today in your environment as well. Little background briefly on Evolving Solutions. So Evolving Solutions, we've been in business for just about 25 years now. We're a technology solutions provider with clients primarily based in the Midwest, with many of them having both a national and even global presence as well. So what that's provided us is exposure to a lot of different industry verticals with clients of various different sizes. And one of the things that we find is pretty universal across all those clients is that their businesses are asking them to deliver new capabilities and services, but no one's really being given double the staff or double the budget to do that. And that's where we really come in and help our clients focus on automation strategies and modernizing their operational approach to their environment to help them free up time from spending in the legacy environment where the core business was built and automate that and allow the time to be spent focusing on new technologies and new capabilities that ultimately support their business transformation initiatives. And while that is all very important, one of the things that there are certain things that remain consistent regardless of where you're running your workloads, and that's things like today's topic of business continuity. As the workloads and as the data become more distributed across hybrid cloud and multi-cloud environments, we're still having to take care of the things that keep the business running and provide our clients an uninterrupted experience and services. So I'm going to turn things over to Phil today to get things kicked off in the discussion around what we're seeing for the new normal of business continuity. Phil?
Absolutely. Thank you, Dan. Again, my name is Phil Fisichella. I've been in the IT space for over 27 years, almost all of that in Omaha. And yes, I have worked at several of our existing clients as well, both from a technology and also from a leadership perspective, and some time at a partner vendor where I did travel the globe and got to implement a lot of the cool things that not only are we talking about today, but also some of the future state as well. You know, one of the things that we know is that 81% of enterprises are really looking at that multi-cloud strategy. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're using Amazon and AWS. Multi-cloud could also mean a hybrid cloud that you're running on-prem as well, that you're treating as your cloud, both in how you present it to your end users, but also from a management perspective as well. So our hybrid cloud vision, it really is all these pieces combined. Today, we're going to be talking about business continuity, and more specifically, how do you manage your data in that business continuity to give you options. Options is going to be my key theme here to make sure that no matter where your journey is today, whether it's very basic or if you're very advanced from a cloud perspective, you still have the same options to protect your data for business continuity. Now, we did want to show a little bit of information from Gartner's 2020 roadmap for business continuity management. I'm not going to read all these, but I do want to highlight a couple. The current state is business leaders are still viewing business continuity management as a an IT or a disaster recovery activity. Still also in silos for certain business units potentially on how that is managed. Now, future state is it's really the continuous delivery of all corporate objectives so that no matter what part of the business may have an issue, whether it's a disaster, whether it's a small isolated, it's still going to be business as usual. And also the push towards that, business continuity management really should be practiced by many, not just the few. And by the few, I mean just IT people worrying about it from a DR perspective. We all know that disruptive incidents are going to damage, it's going to damage business reputations. There's also some legal implications as well. Now, these could be disaster recoveries, just a loss of a data center, for example, or even a portion of that data center. We've seen recently where security breaches, specifically ransom attacks, attack the data, hold it at ransom until either some type of resolution is found, or you just have to restore to a point in time. You could have some data corruption issues, and more recently, the whole pandemic response that I know everybody has had to deal with. What does that mean for your business? It's important to note that teams are adapting, and they still have to adapt to support all the changes that are coming about, not only because of the listed items that we have here, but for the foreseen items that we haven't encountered yet. We really need to be ready to adapt to these changes, and it all starts with not only having your data available and protected, but having that in multiple places, synchronization, and some flexibility, and really those options that I'm always going to be talking about as to what to do depending on the circumstance. So let's talk about where your data may reside today. Obviously, the traditional, you have a primary site and a secondary site. You may even have some cloud options or some cloud items that you're running in the cloud. Either it could be SaaS providers or maybe even just a colo or a hosting provider. The question is, how are you protecting it? Are you just doing local backups? And we do see this often, just local backups that are maybe shipped to an offsite area, then brought back in the event that something happens and you need to do a restoration. You could be doing still backups at your secondary site, still in that tape form, or you could also be replicating your data, which is a step better, obviously, to the traditional tape method that is going away over time. Or you may be actually replicating it out to the cloud. But the true question here is, what's your recovery point objective? What's your recovery time objective? How are you going to get that data back to where it needs to be, up and running? Yeah, great, you have your data secured somewhere else, but how long is it going to take you to spin up, and how up to date is that data? So we really want to take the next several slides in this discussion topic on how do you modernize it? It is time to modernize if you haven't already. Depending on where you are in your journey, maybe some pieces are modernized, but there's still always options to do better. So from a modernization perspective, we really want to look at this holistically. So you have your source data, and that could be on the cloud or at a facility. We're going to start on your facility. You truly want to do a replication to either the second facility or in the cloud. That data replication gives us options as to where we want to respin up those workloads to reduce your recovery time objective as well. Now, you may say, well, we're already in the cloud right now. Traditionally, cloud vendors do not back up your data. Let me say that again. They don't back up your data. Yeah, it might be in multiple sites, but the reality is, in order to restore or to retrieve, you need something extra in order to get that to either replicate to another cloud in your same cloud provider, or even a different cloud, or back to an on-prem facility. So you have multiple copies of your data. This way, if the cloud were to have issues, or you would have, AWS had an outage, you got to be able to spin up that data rapidly. So let's talk about this holistically here. No matter where your data is, no matter how many copies of it, you need to have it not only replicated, but you also want to have it protected, and options to do something in the event of some sort of disaster. Again, we've talked about how businesses still see business continuity as an IT problem from a disaster recovery problem. You know, a disaster may be only one specific application has an issue or got attacked, but the entire data center or the rest of the data is still secured. Some of the options that we have here is we want to be able to get you to the point where you're analyzing your data not on your primary copy, but more so on those um, backup or replicated copy. There are options there so that you can do, if you suffer from a ransomware attack, you don't have to take down production. You can look and analyze your data at your secondary facility, whether it's on the cloud or another on-prem facility. And you can also run performance and other data gathering specifics from there, as long as we have this modernization in place. Now, in the event of a disaster, what does that mean? You want to be able to rapidly spin up workloads against that replicated data, not do a restore, not spin up VMs manually, but truly have the ability to spin up where that data resides against that replicated data to have your workloads up and running. Other options as well, if you have another cloud provider, you could also spin up those workloads and convert them, let's say from AWS over to Amazon. And we have tools to help you do that as well. Again, what does that give us? That gives us options, no matter what the incident is, no matter if it's a disaster, no matter if it's an isolated, you have options to do all these things with a modernized approach to business continuity from an IT perspective. The other piece of this as well, very important, is how do you automate? These need to be automated to reduce that RTO. I'm going to be pressing that really big. Obviously, your recovery point objective is very important, but your recovery time objective is more important from a business continuity perspective. You want policy-driven simplicity. Obviously, cost is going to be an extreme factor, but also you want that multi-cloud mobility as well. Again, if you're running up in AWS, and I'm not picking on AWS, but you need to be able to spin up in another cloud because AWS might have a larger issue than you've anticipated, rapidly redeploy those workloads with only a few clicks into another cloud or even on-prem as well. There are several products that we like to use for this. To us, this is more of a practice. And from that practice, we utilize several products, two of which I want to talk about today, and that's NetApp ONTAP and also Rubrik as well. Now, there's a lot of synergies between these two products, but even if you don't have NetApp storage in use today, you can supplement some of that and use the full power of Rubrik as well to get you close enough. However, from a NetApp perspective, if you have ONTAP both on-prem and in the cloud, you have a lot of these abilities combined with Rubrik, just a couple clicks away, and your business continuity, your recovery time objective is just reduced to a very small amount. Now, I hate to do this, but I'm going to, and I'm going to read some of this or some of these lines verbatim, just so it sinks into everyone. What's the outcome of all that? The ability to deliver autonomous, policy-driven data management to enable and fast-track multi-cloud mobility. What does that mean? Just what we've been talking about. In the event of a disaster, you have that mobility. You can bring it back on-prem, you can push it out into the cloud, convert from one cloud to the other. But let's talk about the other benefit of this as well. If you are looking for migration capabilities, this is a perfect path to migrate as well using these products. First, you replicate, you synchronize, you have backup data, and then you can rapidly deploy those workloads in your target area as well. I want to pause here for any questions. I've been doing a lot of talking, hopefully not too quickly, but I want to see any feedback right now before we go on to the next slide. And giving 7 seconds, we don't have anything, that's fine. All of this we can talk about a lot more in depth at our gathering today at Topgolf. Let's bring it all together. Again, I hate reading some things verbatim, but I'm going to have to here, and I apologize just because I want this to sink in. Obviously, we're still in a state, or most people are still in a state where business continuity is still seen as an IT function responsibility. And there are tools and methodologies to facilitate that. Now, it's going to evolve over time. A lot of companies are starting that evolution. They're starting to talk to their business units, their lines of business, their end users, their supply chains to make sure anything that happens, there is a plan in place. Obviously, IT is still the backbone of that because why? It's all about the data. We've all seen how disruptive disruptive incidences such as COVID-19 can damage reputation and damage businesses as well. I think the latest statistic that I saw, and this is from Yelp, is that 40% of Yelp businesses just have not been able to come back. They're gone, poof. And they either couldn't change their business wasn't ready for a type of disaster. They're small businesses, but it still applies to large businesses as well. Now, disruptive incidents, they can damage. And we've had a client that actually did suffer a ransomware attack. And through the processes that they've already employed that I've gone through, we were able to get them up and running to a point in time very quickly, and they didn't have to pay any ransom. They didn't have to, have big public, discussions about what happened. We were able to get them back very quickly, and it wasn't a disruptor to their business. We do have to adapt. Now, from our point of view, modernizing your data protection methodologies to protect that data no matter where it resides is key. Most people are looking at cloud or multi-cloud capabilities. So no matter where that data resides, it must be protected, and you have to have those options in order to spin things up back quickly and get those pieces of your business or the entire business up and running as fast as possible. We also like to look at data protection from that hybrid cloud lens. It's basically, it's the resilience of your data. It's the rapid recovery. And it's also that proactive analyzing of the data threats, of which you can do through the analysis of that replicated data instead of against production after the attack has happened and you're going through forensics. So that's it for my spiel. Obviously, I could talk about this for hours and hours, and I'm hoping to talk to a lot of you today on some specific needs that you may have, or just do a deeper dive into some of the products that we have available to get you to that next level and bring you get you modernized for what's coming up with business continuity. Dan, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thanks, Phil. Yeah, and let me reiterate what Phil said. Obviously, in this 20-minute conversation, we're only scratching the surface of what the concerns may be and what some of the options are and some of the newer ways of going about approaching this topic. But hopefully you found some of the things to be thought-provoking, and when we get together later this afternoon, we can have a more detailed conversation on your thoughts and what's changed in your environment, and certainly schedule other time as well to go in deeper. As far as the details for this afternoon, the plan is to start the check-in process at Topgolf at 3:15, and by 3:30 we'll head up to the bays for refreshments and some networking. Uh, it's important to note that masks are required to enter the facility, though once we make it up to the bay in the socially distanced area, you'll no longer be required to wear that mask. Also, as I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, this is the first of our small group gatherings on various topics. Our next one will be on September 17th, and we're going to do similar format where we'll kick things off in the morning with a brief discussion around enterprise monitoring and analytics. We're calling that an intelligent approach to improving your end user's experience. So I think it's going to be a great discussion. And then later that afternoon, we plan to get together at Proof 192 on 192nd and Maple out on their patio. I'm sure the weather is going to be great. And we're going to do a whiskey tasting that afternoon. So you'll see information come out on that. And we hope you're able to join us for that as well. And we appreciate everyone's attendance this morning. And we look forward to seeing everyone later this afternoon. Thanks for joining.